Today I will start about the thoracic wall 2. On last Thursday, I finished my lecture on thoracic wall 1. Now today's topics which are including here, internal thoracic artery, which is also known as internal mammary artery also, then azygous vein and the hemiazygous vein, and the accessory hemiazygous vein, and the thoracic sympathetic trunk. Now moving in detail of each. Origin of the course of the internal thoracic artery. Now as we have done in the upper limb, the subclavian artery which continue as an axillary artery and continue as an brachial artery. So in the head and neck also you have seen in the subclavian artery which is originated here. So from the arch of the aorta on the left side and on the right side arises from the brachiocephalic trunk. Now going to detail in about the internal thoracic artery originated from the first part of the subclavian artery opposite the thyrocervical trunk and medial to the scalenus anterior muscle. Now how the subclavian artery is divisible into three parts. Now the diagram showing here on the left side, this is the right subclavian artery. You can visualize in the given diagram. On that, in front of the subclavian artery, the scalenus anterior muscle is there. This muscle which divides the subclavian artery into three parts. The medial to the scalenus anterior is the first part or medial part. Deep to the muscle, that is the second part, and lateral or third part of the subclavian artery, that is lateral to the scalenus anterior muscle. Now you can see here the thyrocervical trunk that is going up and behind the scalenus anterior muscle. Now opposite to that, the thyrocervical trunk, inferiorly the internal thoracic artery is there. Now internal thoracic artery is visualized here in the diagram. So you can see this is the internal thoracic artery which is opposite to the thyrocervical trunk. So as per the course, internal thoracic artery arises from the first part of the right subclavian artery is given here in the figure which is opposite to the thyrocervical trunk. Now and medial to the scalenus anterior mater, which is crossed anteriorly by the brachiocephalic vein before reaching the first rib. You can see here the brachiocephalic vein. Now brachiocephalic vein is visualizing in the given diagram. On the right side of the diagram, you can see above the going to constitute and going to form the brachiocephalic vein. So as per the course of that, it is crossed anteriorly by the brachiocephalic vein before reaching the first rib. Before reaching the first rib, this is the rib, that is the first rib. That rib connected with the, articulated with the manubrium sterni through the costal cartilage is in the blue portion. Now it descends into the thorax. It descends into the thorax behind the first costal cartilage. As per the diagram, I shown here the first costal cartilage. So the artery is here. So it descends down in the thoracic region behind the first costal cartilage. And in front of the pleura. So pleura is the protective covering of the lung. We'll do it later on. Now it descends vertically 1 finger breadth lateral to the sternum. Finger breadth lateral to the sternum. Here you can see the sternum. You can see in the given diagram also the internal thoracic artery. Now here you can see it is running lateral, a finger breadth lateral to the sternum. This is the anterior chest bone called the sternum and originated lies 2 cm above the sternal end of the clavicle. So this is the clavicle. Here the articulated we are going to form the sternoclavicular joint. Behind the sternal end of the clavicle originated 2 cm above it. Right here the first rib, so behind the first costal cartilage. So this is about the subclavian artery, and this is about the internal thoracic artery. Now you can see this is the sternal angle, where the manubrium sterni and the body of the sternum, both of these two articulated joining each other, going to form the manubriosternal joint, is a midline joint we have discussed in the last lecture and called the sternal angle. So as per the last lecture, the clinical importance of the sternal angle, out of so many points, important is for counting the ribs. Now how will you counting the rib? Because this is the first rib, this is the second rib. Second rib through the costal cartilage articulated at this level on the lateral side of the sternum, and that's why above that one is the first, second is at the sternal angle, below that you can see third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So all seven ribs are articulated with the sternum anteriorly and posteriorly articulated to the body of the vertebrae. Now between these two ribs there is a space is called the intercostal space. The gap between these two ribs filled by the intercostal muscles, vessels and the nerves. We have discussed last time. Now this course of the origin of the subclavian internal thoracic artery, it covers by the intercostal cartilage as I shown in the diagram and the intercostal muscle, because the gap between the two ribs filled up with the intercostal muscles. Out of three, one is important, that is the internal intercostal muscle. At the third intercostal space, it continues to run inferiorly but now superficial to the transversus thoracis muscle. So the intercostal space, which is the gap filled up by the intercostal muscles, number one, external intercostal, number two, internal intercostal, number three is the transversus thoracis muscle. Now the internal thoracic artery runs downward, making entry into the thoracic wall here. So at the third intercostal space, it continues to run inferiorly but now superficial to the which muscle? Transversus thoracis muscle. Now in the sixth intercostal space, it divides into two terminal branches. One is the superior epigastric and one is the musculophrenic artery. Now here you can see second costal cartilage. So here second rib between first and second, first intercostal space, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth. So this is the sixth intercostal space in which the vertical course of the internal thoracic artery is divided into two terminal branches. The musculophrenic is the lateral branch and superior epigastric artery is the medial terminal branch of the internal thoracic artery. Right? So this is about the origin. Now internal thoracic artery, as per the terminates the sixth intercostal by dividing into two. Another diagram showing here. Number one, so here you can see the number second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and here you can see the sixth intercostal space. These two are the terminal of the internal thoracic artery. Okay. Now here, Girish bhai. बंद हो गया हाँ पूरा. Now internal thoracic artery continue as here. Sorry for interruption. The artery accompanied by the two veiny comitants on either side of the artery, which unite at the level of the fourth costal cartilage and form the internal thoracic or internal mammary vein. The vein which runs, the internal thoracic vein which runs upwards along the medial side of the artery to end in the brachiocephalic vein at the inlet of the thorax. a chain of the lymph nodes which lies along the internal thoracic artery. Now what are the relations of the internal thoracic artery? We will do a discussion along with the costal cartilage as per the origin which lies behind the first costal cartilage. So above the first costal cartilage, the runs, so here the diagram showing here the sternal end of this clavicle and costal cartilage of the first rib. Now you can see what are the relations. It runs downwards, forwards and medially behind the sternal end of the clavicle. You can see sternal end of the clavicle in the diagram. This is the sternal end of the clavicle. Behind that there is the internal thoracic artery. Internal jugular vein, brachiocephalic vein and first costal cartilage. So here you can see internal jugular vein, brachiocephalic vein and first costal cartilage. Now the last one is the first 6 intercostal nerves. So what are the relations of the internal thoracic artery? Below the first costal cartilage, the pectoralis major. Now this is about below what we have done previously in the above the first costal cartilage. Now as per the discussion, the scalenus anterior muscle which divides the subclavian artery into 3 parts. Now what is the criteria to identify the scalenus anterior muscle? Which nerves? That is called the phrenic nerve which lies in front of the scalenus anterior muscle. So relations above the first costal cartilage, first sternal end of the clavicle, internal jugular vein, brachiocephalic vein, first costal cartilage and last is the phrenic nerve which descends in front of the cervical pleura. Now you can see in the diagram. Now the relations of the internal thoracic artery below the first costal cartilage. It runs vertically downwards up to the termination in the 6th intercostal space. Relations are as follows from above downwards anteriorly. So here you can see anterior relations are the pectoralis major, upper 6 costal cartilage, external intercostal membrane, internal intercostal muscles and the first 6 intercostal nerves. So which are the relations anteriorly below the first costal cartilage is shown here. This is the sternum, the transverse section of this one you can see. This is the anterior chest bone is the sternum, this is the posteriorly the vertebrae. So here you can see the intercostal space between 2 ribs. So here you can see the structures from, you can see pectoralis major muscle, then you can see this is the internal intercostal muscle and anterior cutaneous branch of the internal intercostal nerve. Now here you can see and first 6 intercostal nerves, right? Now what are the posterior relations of the internal thoracic artery? The endothoracic fascia and pleura up to the 2nd or 3rd costal cartilage. Now below this level the sternocostalis is a part of the transversus thoracis muscle which separates the artery from the pleura. Now in the given diagram the transverse section through the anterior thoracic wall to show the relations of the internal thoracic vessels. In the lower part of the course the vessels are separated from the pleura by the sternocostalis muscle. So in the given diagram you can see this is about the sternocostalis muscle visualizing here and internal thoracic vessels here, right? So here it is separated from this is the pleura. So pleura. So below this level sternocostalis muscle which separates the artery from the pleura. So that muscle is dividing here artery from the pleura. Now moving. The most important branch, that is the pericardio-phrenic branch which accompanies the phrenic nerve which lies in front of the scalenus anterior muscle. The phrenic is the synonym word for the diaphragm. So run towards the diaphragm supplies the pericardium. Now supraclavicular nerves and the phrenic nerve, the root value same. That's why if the irritation of the diaphragm will cause later on the pain, which is referred to the shoulder. It is called the shoulder tip pain. We have discussed in the upper limb. The most important amongst the branches of the thoracic artery, the one important is the pericardiophrenik branch. Now here you can see the diagram, the phrenic branch, right? So this is about the branches. Now second important branch, that is called the mediastinal arteries. The small irregular branches that supplies the thymus and in front of the pericardium. Pericardium is a protective covering layer of the heart and its great vessels. And it also supplies the fat in the mediastinum. Mediastinal structure which lies between the two lungs in the thoracic cage. So here thoracic cage which convey here thoracic cage in which the vital organs of the life which are located here like the heart and the lungs with its great vessels. So small irregular branches that supplies the thymus in front of the pericardium and the fat in the mediastinum. So in the given diagram you can see this is the internal thoracic artery and here the phrenic nerve and pericardiophrenik artery, and here you can see the thymus gland. So the thymus vessels are visualizing here. Anterior intercostal arteries, these are the important branches of the internal thoracic artery, arises in the uppermost 6 intercostal spaces. Now in the given diagram you can see the anterior intercostal spaces. In each space there are 2 anterior intercostal arteries running in the intercostal spaces. Now one important also branches of the internal thoracic artery, that is the perforating branches. Now what about here the perforating branches in the female? The perforating branches in the 2nd, 3rd and 4th intercostal spaces are large and supply the breast. So perforating branches contribute to the blood supply of the sternum, that is the anterior chest bone, overlying skin and the pectoral muscles and the breast, which accompany the terminal branches of the corresponding intercostal nerve. So what structure filling the gap in the intercostal spaces? Intercostal muscles, vessels and nerve. So perforating branches amongst the 2nd, 3rd and 4th intercostal spaces accompanying the terminal branches of the corresponding intercostal nerves. Now xiphoid branch, small bilateral branch. You can see this is the xiphoid process. The xiphoid branch visualizing in the given diagram, right? Now a small bilateral branch which passes in front of the xiphoid process of the anterior chest bone, that is called the sternum, and anastomosis with the opposite artery. So this is the one xiphoid branch of the ITA and second branch of the internal thoracic artery ITA, right? So both of these two, anastomosis with fellow of its opposite side, and both of these two are the xiphoid branches on either side. Another important branch of the internal thoracic artery, sternal branches. So distributed in each intercostal space, main sternal blood supply. So this is the diagram showing sternal branch of the internal thoracic artery. This is the internal thoracic artery and this is the sternal artery. You can see here the perforating branch even, and this is the mediastinal and superior epigastric. Now the terminal branch of the internal thoracic artery, here you can see the diagram showing here. This is the internal thoracic artery. The terminal lateral branch is seen here, the musculophrenic artery, and medial end, that is the superior epigastric artery. So what are the terminal branches of the internal thoracic artery? Lateral one, lateral end in the musculophrenic and medially superior epigastric artery. Now musculophrenic artery course runs downwards around the costal margin and laterally behind the 7th, 8th and 9th costal cartilages. It gives 2 anterior intercostal arteries to each of these 3 spaces. It perforates the diaphragm, near the 9 costal cartilage and terminates by anastomosing with the other arteries on under surface of the diaphragm. That is about the musculophrenic artery. Now superior epigastric artery, here it runs downwards and behind the 7 costal cartilage and enters the rectus sheath of the anterior abdominal wall by passing between the sternal and the costal slips of the diaphragm. It supplies the rectus muscles as far as the umbilicus. Note that here, through its various branches, the internal thoracic artery supplies the anterior thoracic and abdominal wall from clavicle to the umbilicus region. You can see. Now, what is the clinical importance of the internal thoracic artery? Mainly used in the bypass surgery for the heart, used in the bypass grafting. The internal thoracic artery is the cardiac surgeon's blood vessel of the choice for the coronary arteries of the heart bypass grafting. So what is called here surgical procedure is called the coronary artery bypass grafting. Coronary artery bypass, simply say CABG, coronary artery bypass grafting. You have heard about in the society that the patient is here suffering from the heart attack which receives the surgery for the CABG called the bypass surgery. Now the left internal thoracic artery has a superior long-term patency to the saphenous vein in the lower limb. So saphenous vein grafts and other arterial grafts. So example for that is the radial artery in the forearm. Gastroepiploic when grafted to the left anterior descending coronary artery, and generally the most important vessel clinically to revascularize. This is about the importance of the CABG in the internal thoracic artery. Now, second topic in the thoracic wall 2. That is the azygous vein. What is the meaning of the azygous? Means unpaired. What it drains? It drains the thoracic wall and the upper lumbar region. It forms an important channel in the diagram. So this is about the azygous vein. You can see around the hilum of the right lung, you can see here the arch of the azygous lobe. And this is the important superior vena cava. Superior vena cava is formed by the right brachiocephalic vein and left brachiocephalic vein. Both of these two behind the sternal end of the clavicle going to form the superior vena cava, and it drain into the blood the right atrium of the heart. And here azygous vein ultimately drain into the superior vena cava. So this is about the commencement of the azygous vein, ascends up along with this and arching over hilum of the right lung and ultimately opens in the superior vena cava, and superior vena cava drains the blood impurified into the right atrium of the heart. So according to the theory, it drains the thoracic wall and the upper lumbar region. It forms an important channel connecting the superior and inferior vena cava. So here the diagram showing here the inferior vena cava is there, and this is the superior vena cava. You can see in the diagram, upper one is the superior vena cava. Here superior vena cava, and this is the inferior vena cava. So important connecting chain between the SVC superiorly and IVC inferiorly respectively. Now commencement of the azygous vein you can see by the lumbar azygous vein, right ascending lumbar vein, and right here you can see right subcostal vein. So right ascending lumbar vein, lumbar azygous vein, and right subcostal vein, all three going to form the azygous vein which runs upwards in the syllabus course and going to drain in the superior vena cava. Now the important channel between the superior and inferior vena cava. The vein azygous occupies the upper part of the posterior abdominal wall and the posterior mediastinum. It also connects the portal venous system, caval venous system, and vertebral venous system. This is about the important short note for theory 1. Now, how the azygous vein is going to form? Formed by the union of the lumbar azygous, right subcostal and right ascending lumbar veins, as the diagram showing here. The right subcostal, lumbar azygous and right ascending lumbar vein, right? Now, the lumbar azygous vein may be regarded as the abdominal part of the azygous vein. It lies to the right of the lumbar vertebrae. So, lumbar vertebrae in the abdominal region. Its lower end communicates with the inferior vena cava. You can see its lower end communicate with the inferior vena cava. Now, the right subcostal vein accompanying the corresponding arteries even. The ascending lumbar vein is formed by the vertical anastomosis that connect the lumbar veins. The azygous vein may be formed by the union of the right subcostal and ascending lumbar veins, may be formed by these two. Now diagram showing here you can see. Now these three are number second, third and fourth. You can see the right brachiocephalic and left brachiocephalic, both of these two forming the SVC. Now right superior intercostal vein, both of these two formed by the second, third, fourth intercostal veins. Now you can see the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th intercostal veins here connecting the azygous vein, and ultimately you can see the right side of this, you can see the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th, these are going to form the accessory hemiazygous vein and ultimately joins with the azygous vein and drain the impurified blood into the SVC. Now 9th, 10th and 11th posterior intercostal veins collectively form the hemiazygous vein. So this is the azygous vein, this is the hemiazygous vein and this is the accessory hemiazygous vein. Another diagram for that one. You can see here connecting between SVC and IVC. Again, you can see along with the vertebral column in the diagram. Now, what is the course of the azygous vein? The vein enters the thorax by passing through the aortic opening in the diaphragm. The major openings in the diaphragm amongst 1, 2, 3, the aortic opening. The vein enters in the thorax by passing through the aortic opening of the diaphragm. Then it ascends up to the fourth thoracic vertebra, where it arches forward over the root of the right lung and enters into the superior vena cava and ends by joining the posterior aspect of the superior vena cava before it piercing the pericardium. Now relations. What are the relations of the azygous vein? Anteriorly, esophagus. You can see anterior relations are there and you can see the azygous vein is there and esophagus is here, right? So this is the azygous vein and this is the esophagus. So what are the anterior relations of the azygous vein? There is then esophagus in front of the azygous vein. Now, what are the posterior relations? The lower 8 thoracic vertebrae on the back side and between the two spaces, the right posterior intercostal arteries. Now, to the right side, what are the relations of the azygous vein? Right lung, as I told you, the arch of the azygous vein, we arches over the mediastinum, hilum of the root of the right lung and pleura and the greater splanchnic nerve. To the left side, relations of the azygous vein, these are the thoracic duct and aorta in the lower part, upper part and lower part. So in the lower part, what are the relations to the left of the azygous vein? Thoracic duct and aorta in the lower part. And in the upper part, esophagus, trachea and vagus. In upper part, esophagus, trachea and vagus. You can see here. This is the green color here. This is the thoracic duct. And this thoracic duct is on the left side. Okay. Now again you can see relations. So this is the transverse section, origin of the right and left posterior intercostal artery from the descending aorta, both of these two. And right is posteriorly, here you can see here the esophagus, then the thoracic duct and azygous vein. So the dilations on the right side, here the thoracic duct and posterior intercostal artery and the sympathetic trunk. And the left side you can see the hemiazygous vein and the sympathetic trunk. Now what are the tributaries of the azygous vein? Tributaries are, number one, the most important is the right superior intercostal vein formed by the union of second, third and fourth posterior intercostal veins. As we have seen in the diagram, so you can see the second, third and fourth. Okay. Now second, third and fourth posterior intercostal veins, union of this going to form the right superior intercostal vein. Now 5th to 11th right posterior intercostal veins, also tributaries of the azygous vein. Hemiazygous vein at the level of the lower border of the 8th thoracic vertebra. Accessory hemiazygous vein at the level of the upper border of the 8th thoracic vertebra posteriorly. And the right bronchial vein near the terminal end of the azygous vein. Several esophageal and mediastinal and pericardial veins are also the tributaries of the azygous vein. Again you can see diagram, accessory hemiazygous, 5th, 6th, 7th, posterior intercostal forming the accessory, later on it joins with the azygous vein. Here 9, 10th, 11th posterior intercostals again going from the hemiazygous and ultimately joins on the over the azygous vein. Now third topic for the thoracic wall, that is the hemiazygous vein. Here the meaning of the hemiazygous also, it is also called the inferior hemiazygous vein, which is formed by the union of the left lumbar azygous, left ascending lumbar and left subcocostal vein. It is a mirror image of the lower part of the azygous vein. Course of the hemiazygous vein, I told you, it pierces the left truss of the diaphragm, ascends on the left side of the vertebra overlapping by the aorta. At the level of the 8th thoracic vertebra, it turns to the right, which passes behind the esophagus and the thoracic duct and joins the azygous vein, as we have seen in the diagram previously. Right? Now the tributaries of the hemiazygous vein, 9th to 11th left posterior intercostal veins and the esophageal veins. Now another topic, that is the accessory hemiazygous vein. This accessory hemiazygous vein is also called the superior hemiazygous vein. Right? Inferior hemiazygous vein is the hemiazygous vein and accessory hemiazygous vein is the superior hemiazygous vein. Here it is a mirror image of the upper part of the azygous vein. What about the hemiazygous vein? Is a mirror image of the lower part of the azygous vein. So accessory hemiazygous vein is the mirror image of the upper part of the azygous vein. What is the course of the accessory hemiazygous vein? Begins at the medial end of the 4th or 5th intercostal spaces and descends on the left side of the vertebral column. Again, here at the level of the 8th thoracic vertebrae like hemiazygous vein, it turns to the right side and passes behind the aorta and the thoracic duct and join the azygous vein we have seen in the previous diagram. What are the tributaries of the accessory hemiazygous vein? 5th to 8th left posterior intercostal veins and sometimes the left bronchial veins. Now the last topic for the thoracic wall, that is the thoracic sympathetic trunk. Now the sympathetic trunk, called the sympathetic chain, which runs along with the paravertebral region on either side of the paravertebral course along with the vertebral column posteriorly. Now the vertebrae divided into the different regions from above downwards: cervical, thoracic, lumbar and sacral. Now the sympathetic chain divided according to the region wise into from above downwards, the uppermost along with the cervical vertebrae, that is called the cervical part of the sympathetic chain, along with the 12 number of the thoracic vertebrae called the thoracic sympathetic chain and a thoracic part of the sympathetic chain, and lumbar along with the lumbar vertebrae, the lumbar part of the sympathetic chain. So you have done in the head and neck cervical part of the sympathetic chain and the lumbar part of the sympathetic chain in the abdomen accordingly. Now what about the thoracic part of the sympathetic chain? What are the features? So what is sympathetic chain? It is a ganglionated chain situated one on each side of the thoracic vertebral column. Superiorly, it is continuous with the cervical part of the chain. As I told you, the chain is divided into the different parts according to the region. So superiorly, it is continuous with the cervical part of the sympathetic chain. Obviously, inferiorly with the lumbar part of the sympathetic chain in the abdominal region. Right? Cervical part in the head and neck region. It bears by here figure showing the chain, you can see. So these are the 12 ganglionatic chains. So these are the thoracic part of the sympathetic trunk and its splanchnic branch. So these are the from above downwards 12 ganglionatic chain called the thoracic part of the sympathetic chain. Now it bears the 12 ganglia. So corresponding to the 12 thoracic nerves. The first thoracic ganglion is commonly fused with the inferior cervical ganglion to form the cervicothoracic or stellate ganglion. The remaining here thoracic ganglia generally lies at the level of the corresponding intervertebral disc and the intercostal nerves. Now the figure showing here, right? So these are the nerves called the greater splanchnic nerve, lesser splanchnic nerve and lesser splanchnic nerves. These are three major branches are derived from the sympathetic chain. We'll moving in detail about that one. So this is the sympathetic chain on side of that, both the sides, vertebral column. Now what are the course and relations of the thoracic sympathetic chain, right? So the course and relations of the thoracic sympathetic chain. The chain crosses the neck of the first rib, obviously the posterior end of the typical rib, that is articulated posteriorly with the vertebra and anteriorly through the costal cartilage connecting with the sternum. So posterior end, here what are the parts? Head, neck and body of the rib. So the chain crosses the neck of the first rib, then the heads of the second to 10th ribs and bodies of the 11th and 12th thoracic vertebrae. So the chain crossing all amongst all these three. The whole chain descends in front of the posterior intercostal vessels and intercostal nerves. So I told you in the lecture 1, thoracic 1, the intercostal space which is occupied by the intercostal muscles constitute together in 3 number: external intercostal, internal intercostal and transversus thoracis. So here and occupying this space is also filled up with the posterior intercostal vessels and the intercostal nerves. Then the course of that chain and it passes deep to the medial arcuate ligament to become continuous with the lumbar part of the sympathetic chain, that is the part along with the abdomen. Now what are the branches? The lateral branches for the limbs and the body wall. Now the important lateral branches. Each ganglion is connected with its corresponding spinal nerves by the 2 rami. The white ramus, that is the preganglionic, and the gray ramus, that is the postganglionic communicants. Now another important branch, lateral branch of the sympathetic chain, the white ramus is distal to the gray ramus. What is about that one? The gray rami communicates along with the spinal nerves, supplying the structure in the skull, skin and blood vessels of the skeletal muscles of the whole body. So these are the lateral branches for the limbs and the body wall. Now the medial branches for the viscera. So medial branches from the upper 5 ganglia are postganglionic and get distributed to the heart and the great vessels, the lungs, esophagus through the following branches. So these are the vital organs for the human body located in the thoracic cage. The thoracic cage is, as told you, formed by the 12 pair of the ribs. Now the heart, vessels, lungs and esophagus. So the pulmonary branches to the pulmonary plexus supplies the lungs. Cardiac branches to the deep cardiac plexus supplies the heart and the great vessels. Aortic branches even though to the thoracic aortic plexus with the great vessels, aorta, and esophageal branches which joins the esophageal plexus which supplies the esophagus. So all these are the structures through the structures supplying going to form the plexus. Now another medial branches, those are, we have finished the lateral branch, medial branches from the upper 5 ganglia. Now medial branches from the lower 7 ganglia. So how many sympathetic ganglia? Thoracic sympathetic chain ganglia 12. Amongst 12, upper 5 forms the main plexus for the vital organs for the body. Now the medial branches of the viscera, the medial lower 7 ganglia are preganglionic and form the 3 splanchnic nerves. Which are the 3? One is the greater splanchnic nerve, second is the lesser splanchnic nerve, and third is the least splanchnic nerve. Now number 1, the greater splanchnic nerve is formed by the 5 roots from the ganglia 5 to 9. You can see in the given diagram, this is the T1 up to T12. Right, you can see 12 ganglia here. So here you can see the figure showing the greater splanchnic nerve. Diagram showing you the greater splanchnic nerve. And the inferior, the least splanchnic nerve. Right. So here you can see is formed by the T5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So all these are T5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. All collectively constitute to form greater splanchnic nerve and connected with the celiac trunk of the abdominal cavity in the abdominal aorta which arises in front of the abdominal aorta and which supplies the viscera even tube. Now here the second is the lesser splanchnic nerve formed by the 10th, 11th, 11th and 12th, the lesser splanchnic nerve. And 12th is totally the least one. Now, so greater descends obliquely on the vertebral bodies, pierces the cross of the diaphragm, and ends in the abdomen, mainly in the celiac ganglion, as we have seen in the previous diagram, and partly in the aortico-renal ganglion and renal, suprarenal gland. So these are supplying by the great splanchnic nerves. Second important diagram you can see. The lesser splanchnic nerve is another medial branch derived from the lower 7 ganglia which are preganglionic and form the 3 splanchnic nerves. Now the lesser splanchnic nerve is formed by the 2 roots from ganglia, that is the 10th and the 11th. Its course is similar to that of the greater splanchnic nerve. It pierces the crus of the diaphragm and ends in the celiac ganglion. So here diagram showing here. These are about the lesser splanchnic nerve, 10th and 11th. You can see in the given diagram. Now, what about the least? That is the last branch, lowest splanchnic nerve, that is called the renal nerve, which is very tiny. It arises by the 1 root from the ganglia 12. It pierces the corresponding crus of the diaphragm. Now, this is about the disclaimer, and thank you so much.